All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sound on Siren podcast. I am your host, Imbali Blooming, and I'm very excited to be back doing another solo episode today. And we're going to be climbing back into a previous skill, a skill that some of you might know that I have, but I'm going to be easing my way back into it in a variety of different ways. So yeah, we'll see what comes of it in this episode. But before we get there, welcome back to the pod. I'm very happy that you are back. If you are new here, please subscribe to the channel where you're watching us. If you're watching us on YouTube, alternatively, you could also be listening to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. The pod, I don't know why it feels like I'm racing, but the podcast Sound on Siren is where we fortify ourselves from the inside out. We fortify ourselves by strengthening ourselves through documenting or through documenting our lives via dialogue. Let's check in before we get underway. How are you? How are you doing? How is your week been? And what is it that you're looking forward to in the next month or so? What is it that you're looking forward to seeing, forward to achieving, forward to doing, forward to being? For me, I am looking forward to finding employment. I think there's a lot of us right now, unfortunately, who are back again in the job market, trying to find new employment and new opportunities. So just know that I'm sending my love and my luck to all of you who are also looking for work. I hope that this time next month, or even by the end of this month, that we are all finding that stability and security and getting a yes from somewhere, getting a job offer from somewhere, or even starting up with a series of interviews that will successfully lead to a job placement. So yeah, that's what I wish for you and for me, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And how would I rate that? How would I rate the level of looking forwardness that I have? I'm feeling optimistic. I think yesterday, if I was rating this last week, maybe the optimism wouldn't be as high because I just got so fatigued and so overwhelmed by having to be back in this space again. But I would say a 7. I think I'm a 7-8 in my optimism about successfully getting a job. So fingers crossed. Okay. For the next segment of the podcast, Siren Sounds, I'm going to pose a question to you and to myself, which is, if you were to choose one genre of music to listen to for the rest of the year, so for the remainder of the year, if you were to choose one genre of music to listen to and you could only listen to that genre of music, what would it be and why? I was thinking I want to say jazz, but a lot of more recently in this year, I've been listening to a lot more R&B than other types of music. But I will say jazz. I'll say jazz music because with jazz, I can get instrumental music and I can also get, jazz that has vocals over it, that has lyrics to it, etc. So yeah, I'm going to say jazz music. That would be the genre of music that I listen to. And probably more than not, it would be South African jazz, maybe some Nigerian jazz, some Ethiopian jazz, and then some American jazz as well that I would listen to. What about you? I said this in the last episode and I said, this episode is going to be short, sweet, cute, whatever. And then it ended up being an almost 45-minute episode. But I think this episode will be short, sweet, and cute. We're going to go into the next segment now from Siren Sounds, and we're going to move into Chatterbox. Chatterbox is where I discuss a variety of topics that I find interesting. Today, I was thinking about what is it that I want to talk about? What is it that's on my heart? What is it that I want to share? And And I wrote here, the isolation of self-doubt and the bitterness of defeated thinking. Something that I wanted to talk about today, the isolation of self-doubt and the bitterness of defeated thinking. And, we're all familiar with self-doubt. We're all familiar with bitter thoughts. We're all familiar with how isolating these can be. To be in self-doubt, to be in negative thought or bitter thought thrives in isolation, because then it doesn't have any counterpoints, doesn't have any other evidence around it to support the contrary or the opposite of it. But instead of going in and kind of talking about themes and experiences that we all understand and we're all going through at different points in time, I wanted to pick up on a skill of mine that I haven't been sharing openly online for a very long time now, but I have been sharing it in I've been sharing it in my one-on-one sessions with folks, with some of the clients that I coach as well, with some of my friends. And I thought, what better way, since we're still doing a solo episode, to share this skill and to share a message that is going to be bringing us back into a healthier way of thinking about ourselves, a more wholesome and holistic way of thinking about ourselves that doesn't just rely on self-doubt and the bitter thoughts. So I am going to be reading some tarot today. We're going to read some tarot. I'm going to do a tarot reading for all of us. And I'm using the tarot deck by Jessi Jumanji. This is the Afro Tarot deck, one of my favorite decks to use. Yes, if you did not know and you're only just finding out, I have, tapped into this medium of the cards, of tarot cards, and this is something that I have been building on for my own personal use. And I think last year or the year before that, really started to share it with folks and use it. And was it 2024? Or was it 2023? 2023 or 2024? I think I gave away 10 sessions. I think it was 10 free tarot reading sessions, if I'm not mistaken. I gave those away on my Instagram and had really, really good feedback from folks about them. But also I enjoyed the process of reading for other folks. And the level of dialoguing, and reflecting that I can support other people to do, to act as not only a vehicle for any channeled messages, but also as a mirror a lot of the times for folks. So I do read, sometimes if I'm reading one-on-one for somebody, I use not only my own intuition, but I also use your intuition. I use my own eyes, but I also use your eyes as well, my own feelings and your feelings as well, because we are marrying our energies, we are marrying ourselves in kind of this investigation that we're going on as we use the medium of the tarot cards. So I've been yapping a lot. So tarot. I think I shuffled these cards not that long ago. So we're going to shuffle. And I know I was talking about the isolation of self-doubt and the bitterness of defeated thinking. So in this reading, I'm going to be asking Spirit, I'm going to be asking our ancestors, I'm going to be asking the universe, really, to give us advice, to give us support in how we can get ourselves out of these cycles of self-doubt and bitter thinking. What is the advice that Spirit has for us to support us in this time? That is my question, Spirit. I'm here with the collective and about to do a reading. No, Spirit says it's talking. How do we get ourselves out of bitter thinking and the isolation of self-doubt? How do we get ourselves out of bitter thinking and the isolation of self-doubt? So very interesting here, the cards that have shown up. So the first two cards that showed up, kind of one on top of the other. The first card was the Strength card. And the Strength card, for folks who don't know, really is exactly what it says here, is cultivating and finding that strength within yourself, that courage of the lion within yourself, but not finding it with force, finding it with a gentler hand, a softer hand. So not cultivating this strength and this courage with force, but cultivating it with tenderness, cultivating it with softness, cultivating it with a softer hand. What does it look like to get ourselves out of self-doubt and out of this cycle of bitter thinking? Not by judging ourselves, not by, trampling all over ourselves, not by pulling ourselves out of it, but how can we hold ourselves through it so that we can get to this other side, and the Six of Cups here showed up in reverse. The Six of Cups looks like this, but it did show up in reverse here. And reverse cards, I read reverse cards as a tarot reader, and the way that I see reverse cards are an indication of an energy that is being suppressed or an energy that is being too amplified. Right? And so the energy that is being suppressed, sure, if you know what the Six of Cards stands for, it stands for this emotional relationship of care and compassion that is being provided. So it's this helping of somebody else. It is cups, so it does deal with the emotions, with the heart center. So caring for others potentially that need that care and compassion, or for a younger person or a younger self, so a younger version of yourself. But for this reading, I think it really emphasizes, because it also did come out right after the Strength card, this idea of like garnering strength with softness, garnering strength with compassion, with care, and not, sometimes I will be feeling down and I don't like feeling down because I'm not used to how down the down can be. If you listened to episode 32, I think it was, you would have found out a little bit more about this kind of cycle or process of like feeling really down as somebody who normally has high energy, is a go-go person, is full of life, is all of this kind of stuff, is full of optimism. But is to not roughly judge myself out of this. There's no rough judgment that I can provide myself that will allow me to work through and come out on the other side of this bitter thinking and this self-doubt. There's a certain level of caressing of oneself through this, of holding oneself gently through this. So hold yourself gently through that. That's where the strength is. The strength is, are you strong enough, even in the darkest of dark, to gently hold yourself through this moment? The next card that showed up here was the Four of Pentacles. Was the Four of Pentacles here. And I really like the suit of Pentacles, even the way that I say Pentacles. One of my best friends really enjoys the way that I say that word. But what I'm feeling here as part of the reading, this advice about how to get ourselves, to the other side, is really thinking about the foundations that we have. Like there's something here about being able to see what is stable, being able to see where there is security, being able to see what it is that you already have, right? What is material, and being able to not turn a blind eye to that, not negate it, but to actually see, and maybe in seeing still what is secure, what is intact, can also help you to realize that it's not everything that is fallen apart. It's not everything that has broken down. The next card that came out is the Hangman, and the Hangman is usually like this when it's upright, but it did come out in reverse. And usually the Hangman, gives us an opportunity to pause, to breathe, kind of a stillness. It's kind of the sensation of a limbo state. But when the Hangman is upright, this limbo state is something that we are encouraged to be in, the stillness, to not do anything. But when it's reversed like this, I feel like maybe we're just not doing, we're not doing when the doing is needed. Does that make sense? Like, we're not doing when the doing is needed. A lot of the times when self-doubt thrives also on not doing anything. When you're doubting yourself, a lot of the times you're not acting. When you're doubting yourself, you're not, igniting anything. Instead, you're inert. You're holding back. You're still, and you're holding kind of onto when you're doubting yourself. You're holding, and then you're also taking away from that possibility of actually doing when we're in self-doubt and bitter thinking. So with the Hangman in reverse here, what it feels like the advice is that we ought to do something. It's not do more and do a lot and all this kind of rat race stuff. No, it's not even do so that other people can see, but it's so that you can see, so that you can have this evidence on that will prove that the contrary is true. So you have this evidence to prove that the contrary is true. And maybe the big thing that you're self-doubting yourself with is huge. Huge thing. But there are other smaller things that you can do, other smaller steps that you can do, things that you can accomplish, right? That can be that fuel, right? To add to the evidence of the contrary that no, you actually can do this, that there is actually a possibility of success. And even sometimes when you do these things, right, it might also be that you fail at those things as well, but that failure doesn't end you, and that might also be the evidence that you need, is that failure is not the end. It's actually the beginning of the next thing. Failure is not the end. It's the beginning of the next thing. So instead of being in a total hangman limbo and just kind of, floating and not making any moves, make the moves, make some move, make a move, so you can bring up a little bit more evidence for yourself. The next cards that came out together, so we have here the 8 of Pentacles. And the 8 of Pentacles for me is a card of hard work, is a card of, dedication and commitment, is a card of, fruition. These things that you saw here, these things that you remembered were still intact, that there was still some sense of security, bring more things that are of security, galvanizes more things that you can see, that you can pick up on, that are still there, that are still secure. And also realizing that not giving up and just keep going. The 8 of Pentacles is such a beautiful card for me because it's not yet a card of reaping what you sowed necessarily. It's still a card of putting in work, putting in hard work, being studious, refining that skill. If the thing that is stopping you from moving forward is that you need to learn a little bit more about something, do the learning, refine the skill. But as you're learning, apply. As you're refining the skill, do them in tandem. Do them in tandem with one another as well. And then we have the 3 of Swords here, but it did show up in reverse underneath here. So do them in tandem. And I feel like this card supports this card to say, do them in tandem. But even if, just like what I was saying with the Hangman, even if you fail when you're doing these things, even if you lose, even if there's grief, even if there's sadness, even if there's something to be lost here, even if there was something that was lost back then, and that's why you're here in self-doubt and in this bitter thinking, that fortifying yourself fortifying yourself with the Eight of Pentacles. Fortifying yourself allows you to also work through the grief and to process the grief. Might come with its own grief, but allows you to process this grief and kind of move the grief forward, because it allows you to process the self-doubt. If we put this card as the self-doubt card, the card of, bitter thinking, this card on top of it is what moves it along. Is committing yourself and dedicating yourself to refining, to not giving up, to still doing, but not pushing yourself too much. Like I always feel like when I'm doing readings, there's this prefacing, that has to be said, because sometimes when we listen to, a message or, we're getting advice from somebody, we can take it and run with it, but it's important that you meter and you monitor and you temper what it is that you're taking and how you're taking it and how you're processing it as well. So we'll pull just one last card here, any kind of clarifying card from Spirit, maybe any other messages that need to come through. Okay, maybe any other messages that need to come through, Spirit. Here I'm looking for like one card or maybe another two cards. Any messages, any other advice for the collective and myself about how to move out of self-doubt and bitter thinking, and get ourselves moving forward. Okay, that seems like the only card outside of the 20,000 that wanted to fall out. This one seems like the last card. Okay, so we have the Hermit card here. And a lot of the times, folks can interpret the Hermit card to mean, isolation, taking time away from people, but we're already dealing with something where we are starting at self-doubt. We are starting at the isolated feeling of self-doubt. We are starting at the bitter thinking. And so the advice here, I don't think is necessarily isolating further. The advice with the Hermit card, because what the Hermit does when the Hermit goes into the Hermit's cave is that not only are they isolated from everything and everyone, but they're not isolated despite or to spite everyone else. They're isolated so they can go in and further investigate oneself, right? To further reflect on oneself, to further gauge the knowledge, to further gauge a wisdom as well, to cultivate a sense of wisdom as well. And for me, I feel this card really calls to stillness, to being just a bit more still, a bit more quiet in the head, but maybe loud in the heart, quiet in the head and maybe loud in the gut, quiet in the head and maybe loud in the sacral area, quiet in the mind, quiet in the subconscious, and loud in the presencing of the heart and the gut and the feelings and your sacral energy as well. And maybe for some folks, this could be a point where you could be looking at ways to be still. You can use mindfulness practices, obviously, meditations as well. And, sometimes it's not a technique that you must go and research and do and now apply this technique. Sometimes it's just the knowledge, figuring out, what are the properties of the sacral chakra? What are the properties of the heart chakra? What are the properties of the chakra that sits kind of around the gut? What are those properties of those areas? And when we learn this information, sometimes when we're able to harness and to harvest information, that already opens up and percolates some different channels for ourselves, so it's not always a go out and do and become the expert and do this, but just gauging a little bit of information every now and then. So for you and for me, let's step out of our self-doubt and our bitter thinking by giving ourselves a gentle caress, seeing what is still secure, seeing what is still intact, okay? Doing the small things, doing things that are a little bit smaller, doing step by step, getting more evidence, new evidence to counter this self-doubt, to act, to move that energy out of the body, to keep persisting, to keep moving on, to be committed, to ourselves, and to also work through our grief and our loss of what was and what could have been, and then to study ourselves in a way that allows us to know more about ourselves. Yeah, that closes off the reading. I hope that reading, had something in there for you. And if you would like a one-on-one reading with myself, feel free to reach out to me on my social media platforms at Imbali_blooming on Instagram or Imbali blooming on TikTok. Send me a DM and we can see what we can work out with doing readings for you. Wonderful. That felt so good. I'm so open. I feel very open. Whereas I feel very open. I'll just leave it at that. Awesome. Okay. And the last segment of the podcast is called Upele Pele, which is where I bring a spicy thread or something spicy from the web that I'd like to share with all of you or with my guest when I have a guest. Is it just me, but sometimes your teeth just be getting in the way? Like, I don't know. Anyway. Today, okay, so this is from Dr. Thema. If you folks don't know Dr. Thema is just a phenomenal person. I believe she's a minister and a psychologist. Has her own podcast as well. She's an author and a TEDx speaker, etc. So obviously she's brilliant. So one of the threads that she posted was a question, and the question was, what's a lesson you learned the hard way that you hope others can avoid having to go through? Some of the answers. A lesson that I learned the hard way. That overgiving won't make someone love me more. That no matter how much you pour, sacrifice, or show up, if someone isn't ready to receive love within the same depth, they'll only drain you. And you'll keep calling it loyalty while bleeding out silently. I learned that love should never cost you yourself. That is a big one. Love should never cost you yourself. Someone else says, no false niceness. If they were mean to you, then they were mean to you. Don't sugarcoat it because mean is mean. Don't forgive them if you don't feel it. It's not your job to make others feel comfortable at your expense. Someone just made a comment about something else completely. Someone said, always look at their actions, never the words. Actions show you all you need. Other people's problems are not your problem. Trust your intuition. If something feels off, believe it. Never have a kid with a man you wouldn't marry. Interesting. Stop believing that being a nice or a good girl means you have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You're people pleasing. Know that you are enough. Okay. Someone said, leave at the first sign of rage and violence in a relationship. He may start by punching the walls and smashing stuff near you. Eventually, he starts on you. I like this one. This next one says, number 1, marrying late is better than marrying wrong. Marrying late is better than marrying wrong. Secondly, leave the first time they cheat. Yeah, this cheating thing. I even had a whole conversation with my mom about this cheating thing. Maybe I'll put her take on the YouTube channel as well. I'll post her take. We had this conversation in December when I was home, but leave the first time that they cheat. I agree with that, but I also don't know in the moment if that will still be what I agree with, because I think it depends on a variety of different factors. Or is that just me making excuses already to stay? I don't know. You tell me. The next one says, not everyone you meet is going to like you, and that's okay. And that is okay, especially in this. I think we keep saying this, but it is really the day and age of social media and likes and follows and all this kind of stuff, especially in this realm of things. You know, some people are following you, but they don't like you. Some people are following you, but they don't like you. What are they calling them now? They're calling them monitoring spirits. Some people are following you, but they don't like you. Some people are liking all of your stuff, but maybe they're not really supportive of you. Be careful. Be careful. Someone said, and I think we know this one. Some people don't love you. They love what you do for them. They love your unpaid labor. They love your unpaid labor. And you know, I was actually thinking, should I make this a discussion? Maybe I'll write it down and make this a discussion for the next episode. Yeah, I'll make this a topic for the next episode. Okay, so I'll just read a handful more. So somebody said, difficult people will take and it's never enough. Stop. Reevaluate, because you can't win people over by giving till you're bone dry. It's not healthy, no matter how you slice it. You're not meant to win people over, and you can't get validation through overgiving. So very similar to the first sentiment of that person that we got. This next one says, don't be afraid to venture out of your circle of friends and meet new people. There's a world of people ready to receive your light. This one is very, very interesting to me because I have a small circle of friends. I have a small circle of people that I would call my friends, but a huge circle of people that I know who know me, right? But a very small circle that I would call my friends. And one of my friends just moved back home recently, which brings that small circle down by one. At least that's here in the same area that I'm in, right? And it had me thinking the other day. I was like, oh my goodness, you know, that's one less person in my proximity, you know. Do I want to go out and meet new people and make new friends and make new relationships, you know, and build new connections with folks? And I do want that. But when it comes to actually going out to that event, that whatever, that what, I don't have the same vim as I did last year or the year before that. I just don't have the same vim for it. And I think maybe I'm thinking of going to meet people in similar ways, in ways that I have outgrown, maybe ways that now feel outdated to me. And the opportunity there is me meeting people through doing different things, doing different activities, you know, as well. So not only do I get to explore new things, new adventures, new activities, but I get to potentially meet new people as I do this. We'll see. We'll see. But what about you? What about you? Do you branch out of your circle of friends and meet new people? Is that something that you're comfortable with? You do consistently, you know, or is that something that you feel like you have to work at as well? Someone said, being a mother is hard. I'm not a superwoman, and it's okay to close the door and cry sometimes. It's okay to admit that you don't have all the answers, and it's okay to seek help. Someone said, apologies without changed behavior are absolutely worthless. That's absolutely true. So I'll remind you of the question, and I'll read like 3 more. What's a lesson you learned the hard way that you hope others can avoid having to go through? Someone said, stop being the nice friend and the bigger person. Stop being the only glue that holds your friend circle together. If they don't give 2 craps about initiating a hangout, screw them. Screw them. And that's That's potent right there. That's potent right there. I think one of the things that I wrote in my journal at the beginning of this year was that I would hand out less olive branches this year, that I would be open to invitations to hang out, to see people, to do things, but I would invite less. I would initiate less as well. And that, has its advantage. Its advantage is that I am preserving, my energy, my time as well. And then the disadvantage of that, or the downside of that, is actually noticing and realizing that people don't initiate, other folks don't initiate. And actually all this time you had been the initiator, you had been the one who invites, the one who shares, the one who suggests, the one who plans, etc. And then having to figure out is that an okay dynamic for me to have in my friendship? Do I want more? Do I want less? Etc. And I don't feel like I'm at a point right now where I am willing to be the initiator again, to extend the olive branch again. I'm going to sit a little bit longer in this realm of being the receiver, and receiving from life and from my friends and from my friendships as well. So yeah, let's see what comes with that. But thank you once again for tuning in to the episode. This is the Sound on Siren podcast. I hope that this episode has helped in some way or other to fortify you from the inside out, or maybe because you were receiving from me from the outside in. I've been your host, Imbali Blooming. Please follow us on our social media platforms. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Imbali Blooming, where you will find Sound on Siren podcast videos under the SOS playlist. And then follow us on TikTok and on Instagram, Sound on Siren Pod. Comment, share, let's see what other people in your life have to say as well. And take care of yourselves, folks. Take care of yourselves until the next episode.